right? A lot of people are like, I do have a boundary. Well, what are you doing to maintain that boundary? Because unmaintained boundaries are not boundaries. Hello, welcome to the Bounce to Excellence show. I'm your host, Dr. Judy Wright. And today I want to do something a little bit different, right? Today I want to step out from behind the interviewer's mic and I want to share something personal, a milestone that I really gained some lessons about, and I really wanted to be able to share that with you. So at the time you're seeing this is going to be April of 2025. And so I'm recording this in March. But as of this recording, this month marks 5 years since I was declared cancer free, right? So this is a big milestone because a lot of times when people talk about being a cancer survivor, they talk about the 5-year mark. It's really an important mark. And I really just didn't want to, I didn't think I'd be one of those people, but I really didn't want to let that go. And I've kind of been counting it down in my head since probably last November that March was going to be the 5-year mark since I was declared cancer free. And so what I want is for this episode to be a reflection of that journey, what it taught me, how I thrived, and even what's next. Okay? So let's talk about the journey. So I actually was diagnosed with breast cancer during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October of 2020. And that literally was just happenstance. It wasn't one of those situations where I said, well, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, so let me go get my mammogram. It was more of, okay, oh yeah, I hadn't seen the gynecologist in a while. And when I saw her finally that August, she felt something in my left breast. She was new to me. I was new to her. I was like, I have lumpy breasts. She probably, it probably is nothing, but I'm going to schedule it. And as soon as I walked out that office, I forgot to schedule it. And so in September, I was holding a get together, and one of my friends, because she was going through something very personal with her lifelong friend, who was, actively dying from cancer. And she made this promise that all of us were going to take care of ourselves, take care of our health, go to our appointments, do whatever testing we had to do. And in the moment she said it, I said, oh yeah, wasn't I supposed to schedule a mammogram? Okay. So that was on a Saturday. The very next Monday, because I made a note to myself, I called to schedule for a mammogram that I was going to do during my lunch break. And so when I scheduled it, they said, okay, well, we have time open. And I believe it was October 7th of 2019. And so arrogantly, even though I was not going for a routine, because a routine is just, yeah, we're just doing a screen, right? This was not a routine. This was more of a diagnostic because she felt something. But in my head, go figure, as a doctor, I'm still just telling myself something else. So I go, and what should have been in my head, a very routine, wouldn't take more than about half an hour. So between travel time there, doing the testing, and travel time back, my whole lunch hour would be gone. But I was not there for a half hour. I was not there for an hour. I was there for over 2 hours. And I pretty much knew something was wrong. And I knew more that something was wrong when the radiologist showed up. Now, if any of you know, you may be in with the text, but the radiologist doesn't show up until something, is off. And when the radiologist showed up, I just was like, well, tell me what's going on. And they told me they had found suspicious findings in my breast that even though you should not call it cancer, he said it was very suspicious. He saw the microcalcifications in the left breast, and it was very suspicious. So he immediately wanted to give me 3 names of doctors that he felt were really good, breast surgeons he felt were really good, so that I could continue or start testing to see if this was really cancerous lesion. And I picked one of the names, and he actually had the office call them. So literally, that was like, I believe it was like a Monday, and by that Friday, I was in the breast surgeon's office, right? And from there, it became a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. And when I say emotions, I won't say that I was doing like, did I tear up a bit? I did, but literally it was like my eyes glistened, one tear rolled down, and then I was like, all right, what do we have to do? Because at that point I was kind of just holding things in. And the way I held it in was the way I always do things. There are things to be done. I don't have time to be doing all this blubbering. What am I going to do? How am I going to tell, my spouse? How am I going to tell the kids? How am I going to tell my parents? How am I going to tell my siblings? Oh my goodness, how am I going to tell my one of my best friends who already has a childhood friend who is actively dying from cancer? Right? So I became more concerned about how other people were going to take it, making it easy for them, and getting better in the context of those other people. Okay? And so that was it, right? We're forging ahead. We're doing what we have to do. The breast surgeon said, after we did when she looked at it, she was pretty sure it was cancer, but she, wanted me to go for further testing, and I did the biopsies and came back, and it confirmed that I had not one but two different stages of cancer in my left breast. And so now I had to do what I had to do, right? Simultaneously, I was super stressed out. Not by this. This actually gave me something else to focus on, because I was super stressed out at work, and it was and had been for a while, even though I didn't acknowledge that. So this actually gave me something else to focus on, if you can believe that. I know that sounds crazy, right? But it actually gave me something different to focus on. So yeah, pretty much that's what happened. And so October rolled into November. I saw the plastic surgeon for the first time. November rolled into December. It's holiday season. There were things going on. And then I was set up to go for surgery in January of 2020. And so, my stressor then wasn't so much as the surgery. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I've ever said that to anybody, but hey, YouTube is a great platform to say something, right? So I'm going to be honest with you. I was actually looking forward to having the surgery, and just being out on medical leave. I knew I needed a break, and I was looking at it as, finally I could take a break. I was actually looking forward to it because of that. Now, the idea of surgery, I didn't like the idea of surgery for my own reasons, but I was looking forward to, oh my goodness, I get to take a break, if you could believe that. So my surgery was January 15th of 2020, and I had to recover. And it meant that because I just had the type of surgery that I just had, I couldn't be doing a lot of things, right? I just couldn't be doing a lot of things. So now we're going to go into, some of the lessons that I learned, because I'm going to start here. Now, one of the lessons I learned was the power of community and support. See, it's one thing to know that you have good community. It's one thing to know that you have good community intuitively, but a lot of us never get to test that, or at least we never get to test that until we're sick or we're very old. And so I guess this qualifies as sick, or I didn't really see myself as sick, even though, yes, I did have cancer. But when I tell you community came in clutch, my support system was fire. And I live with my husband and children. My children were obviously 5 years younger than they are now. But when I tell you how my mother, and my mother was already in her 70s, how my mother got people to pick her up because she was coming to stay with me for a while. She was going to cook my meals. She was going to do this. She did not want me. She was going to take care of her grandkids. She did not want me doing a bunch of stuff. And if I even tried, force of habit, if I even tried, I was like in trouble, right? And so, it was great to have her around. Meanwhile, people are checking in on me. People from different states are calling me. When I finally told a couple, because I have a close-knit community on Facebook that I'm a part of because we were a community before we ever got onto Facebook. And so a lot of these women I have known since I was planning my wedding many years ago. And so um when they found out, they were asking what can they do. I had someone reach out, do you need me to send you some meals? What do you need? So my support system was fire. Right? When it was time for my mother, she was gonna go back home, she had already coordinated with my sister. Now in comes my sister and my niece, who was of age. She was an adult, and they came in because now they're taking up the mantle. And now they're helping. And so my sister, she literally took off FMLA because she was coming to help me, right? And take care of her niece and nephew, who adored their grandmother being there, adored seeing their grandfather come around, their uncles, their cousins, but they have a special bond, special bond with this particular cousin. Um, my niece, my sister's daughter. And so they were super happy about that. But eventually, my sister said she's going to go back to work. And at that moment, because my mother was still concerned that was enough time, she then reaches out to my niece and says, would you be willing to stay an extra 2 weeks with your aunt? And she said, absolutely. So now she stayed when my sister went back to work, and my niece stayed, and she continued to help me out. And it was just a wonderful thing, right? And the coordination, I had people bring me food that they made because they know I like their, particular dish that they cook. Just the coordination of people helping out, which was so important to me, helping out my husband, helping out my children, keeping their lives as normal as possible, so incredibly important to me. But eventually, my niece left. Now, here was the thing. Once she left, okay, we abutted right on, shortly thereafter, without realizing that's what was going to happen. We abutted on lockdown. Let's just put it like that. We abutted on lockdown. And so that led to a bit of isolation, but I felt okay about that. So that was the first thing I learned, that my community was fire. From the virtual community, the in-person community, family, friends, okay, even somebody that, works for me, just fire, right? So that was the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned was about the importance of, self-care, because I wasn't engaging in self-care at all. And that's what I had to come to realize, because remember, I said that I was very stressed out. And so I started to focus more on this. But the plain fact of the matter is, when I had time to sit down and think, I was like, you were super stressed out and you were on your way to burnout. Like, no joke. You were like maybe a toenail away from it. Like that was just the thing. And so I realized I wasn't taking care of myself at all. How did I get to even this point where I had these 2 stages of breast cancer? I'm not saying doing my regular mammograms would have stopped me from having breast cancer, but it might have been detected earlier. It might have been just a lumpectomy as opposed to a double mastectomy that I had. I had not been going to my appointments the way I should have. I had missed almost 3 years of doing my mammograms. I was missing appointments to go to the gynecologist in the first place. I was missing other appointments. I could tell you every appointment that my children were supposed to have off the top of my head, but mine, I couldn't remember them. I couldn't remember to make them. Even when I made them, I couldn't remember to attend them. I wasn't taking care of myself. Basic, I had a massage package. I wasn't doing any of them by the time, this rolled around. I had like 26, 27. It was more than 2 years worth of massage packages, which means I was just paying into it monthly, right? I wasn't checking in on myself. I wasn't being aware of how I felt. And this is how I didn't realize that I was on the verge of burnout, right? And all of that self-awareness and understanding what you need, that's all part of self-care. But I wasn't engaging in any self-care. So self-care became very important to me, and I learned how important it was to care for yourself from multiple avenues, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, financially even. That all became super important. So that was another lesson that I learned. resilience. Cancer taught me about being resilient. Now I know I was resilient in certain things, but not others. Cancer taught me how to be resilient. It taught me not just to bounce back, but also to grow through what you go through. Yep. Grow through what you go through. So here's the thing for me, right? And I don't say this facetiously. I don't say this in a way that I'm better than. And I know different people, their journey when they have cancer is different. For me, I look at cancer as something I had to go through because it was trying to give me other lessons. I do consider myself one of the lucky ones because pretty early on, the breast cancer surgeon was able to tell me, I don't think this is life threatening. I do believe it's breast threatening, but I don't think it's life threatening for you, right? Not everybody gets that opportunity, but it is something that I have, and it did leave some residue with me, right? Because I'm gonna tell you that, and I know I'm not the only one. When you have cancer, when you've had cancer, um, it leaves a mark, a sort of mark in your brain that I think my mother said it best. My mother said to me, yeah, you used to be 100%, but now you're more like 96%. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And in part, she was talking about the fact that, they had to take something. They had to take my breast. So I'm not 100% me anymore because they had to take something. They had to take my breast. Right. But also, there's a certain thing that goes with, yeah, I'll never be able to say ever again that I've never had cancer because I have. But with that goes the realization that you can have cancer again. You've had it once, right? Your risk for getting cancer again um, is increased when compared to the general population, right? And so when you take a test, when a blood test is off, you have extra questions. Something hurts or that you have to do, CAT scans or whatever, and something doesn't look great or perfect, or like it looked the last time, you now have questions. And in the back of your head, you're like, is that what it's trying to say? So it does leave a mark, but I still have learned so much from having it from having had it, that it's taught me how to bounce back and how to grow through it and also see all the things I wouldn't have learned about me, okay, to become an even better version of myself, right? Had I not had it. And I've also said before that having the idea of burning out once I realized that I had been on the verge of it was actually made me shudder even more than finding out that I had cancer. In a way, I look at cancer as saving me. And so I learned resilience. That was the second lesson. Well, so yeah, no, that was the third lesson because self-care was the second. Another lesson that I learned was embracing balance. Now, I don't even know if I even thought about balance before sitting down while recovering and realizing, man, you ain't had none of that. What balance? You ain't when did you ever have balance, right? But balance doesn't just come to you. It's something you have to work on, and it looks different for different people. And that's what I realized. And for me, it's ever evolving, right? What balance may have been for me if I paid attention to it when I was in my 20s is definitely not what it looked like for me when I was in my 30s and now married and beginning to have kids. When I was in school versus when I was in work, right? I'll be honest, I didn't have anything to compare it to. So now I had to just decide, what does it look like to me, and really um hone in on my own ideas of, do I believe in it, which based on the name of this show, I came to the conclusion that I do. But what does that look like for me? And is it dynamic or is it static? Meaning, is it one and done when I decide what it looks like for me, that's how it's going to be? Or is it evolving? Is it changing? And I do know for me, it is, right? But just the embracing of it, the realization for me that it does exist, that it's not just existent though, it's created, It's actively created what that can look like for me and embracing it. Because when you poo poo it, when you don't embrace it, there's no way you're going to get it, right? And it's okay that it's something that it's created and you work to maintain it, right? What is not like that? I say that about self-care. I say that about boundaries, right? A lot of people are like, I do have a boundary. Well, what are you doing to maintain that boundary? Because unmaintained boundaries are not boundaries, right? So it's okay that, some people think, well, once you balance it, it stays balanced, right? No, because life is life and things shift, right? Life is life and things shift. So no, you have to be flexible enough to shift with it so that you can maintain balance. So embracing balance became really big for me. And then the other thing that I really picked up on, the other journey, and I'll stop there, is embracing vulnerability and being open. Yeah, vulnerability was not something, just the word vulnerable, I didn't like it, right? But what that does is it keeps you at a point where you don't know how to ask for help. Prior to this is the second podcast that I've hosted, but both of them happened after my diagnosis and treatment with cancer. The first one was called Queens on Call, and that started somewhere around, I want to say, if not May, June of 2020. Okay, and it was called Queens on Call. And I would have never, when it was first brought to me, I was like, what? Podcast? But that's showing too much of me. Even though it wasn't even, on a visual platform, it was strictly an audio podcast, right? But even then I was kind of self-conscious about how I sounded. And I was just like, I don't know about that, but I did it. And what I found, because I allowed myself to be open and vulnerable, what I found was that I actually liked it. Without having someone approach me to be a co-host on that, I probably wouldn't be even here doing my own podcast and being willing to not just do an audio, but do a video and be seen on a regular basis, right? So just being open to those new opportunities, but being vulnerable also to sharing my stories, things that I've experienced, sharing that with the public, sharing that with you, sharing that with on the stages that I'm on, sharing that with my clients, right? So, just that willingness to be more vulnerable and share more of myself and being open, because that openness has opened me up to opportunities as well that I would not have been able to realize. um and I learned that vulnerability from being vulnerable enough to accept help when I needed it, when I was recovering. That I learned the being open when I started to think about, well, what was important to you? Things that you thought were so important just suddenly didn't look so important now that you've encountered cancer, right? So what's important to you? Right? These things set me up to being more vulnerable, more flexible, and I consider myself pretty flexible, but more vulnerable and more open, right, to the things around me. Okay, so those were the lessons that I learned, right? And because of it, I've achieved some things. I became, an international speaker, both virtually and, in person. Because of it, I've spoken on stages in Spain, and I've spoken on stages in Canada. And, I've been to a multitude of conferences where I have spoken. I've spoken virtually. I've spoken in front of associations, other medical professionals, right? Which was like a full circle moment for me. So, um, yeah, I've definitely done that. I started a business and I'm growing a business, and that all happened since this happened. Because again, it became, well, what kind of things you said probably back in 2017, 2018, that there's more that you want to do. It doesn't have to be different. Maybe it's in addition to, but there's more you want to do. You just don't have the time to figure it out. And now you did. So what kind of things do you want to do? And I decided I wanted to start a business. I didn't necessarily know what it was going to be for. And to be honest, what it started off as is not what it is today. The concept is completely and utterly different. They are worlds apart in what I conceptualized. But here we are. I won an award with Success Magazine as a woman of influence for 2023. And so that was a great accomplishment. Like I was nominated for it. What a wonderful opportunity. It felt really good and it felt great to share. And I'm telling you right now, I normally, or the pre-me would not have even shared that. I would have shared that with my family and my friends and left it at that. I wouldn't have put it on social media. I did all of that because why not? Right? It was an accomplishment. Why not share it? So that was an accomplishment. I wrote my first solo book. In fact, let me take that back. I became a co-author after recovering from cancer. So I became a co-author there, and then I released my first solo book last year. Okay, and let me just show it to you guys because I love it. It's called "Girl, Get Your Life Off the Fault Line: The Busy Professional's Guide for Mastering Balance to Move from Overwhelmed to Empowered." Yep, that's me, right? So I wrote my first solo book. Okay, and the other book is that I'm a co-author, and is Self-Care is Not a Mani Petty, because I believe that it is so much more. It is self-care, but it's so much more than it being a mani-pedi and a massage. So I became a co-author and an author since then, and that's not something that I did before. Then lastly, not least, and not even really last, but I'm going to, just stop at 5 things that I accomplished. I started this podcast. So like I told you before, the last podcast I was in, all of this happened since 2020. Since my diagnosis in 2019 and my surgeries in 2020, all of this has taken place, right? So there's so much that has come out of, when you encounter something like this, things come into focus if you allow it to. It comes into focus what's important, right? Now, it may not come into focus just like that. It may take work, but it's telling you it's time. Make some decisions. Because a lot of times we just move like robots, right? We just automatons. We get up, we get ready, we get your children ready if you have children, or your pet ready. You go to work, you come home, you cook or you order food, you get some stuff done, you go to bed, you start it all over again. And it just becomes rote, right? And now this is not to down anybody that is doing just that. However, the question is, how aware are you of your needs? And part of your need may be the need to figure out what's important to you. The need to look at your whole self and address your whole self. The need to define success on your terms and not the terms of your family members, your friends, society at large, right? But a lot of us, we're not aware and we're not looking. And some of it is by design. We're so busy. We're like what I said back in 2018. I know there's something else, but I don't have time to figure it out. And so that's a bonus lesson, that while my time was built in, I don't wish on anybody to get ill or, or anything of that nature. Mine was built in for multiple reasons where I had to stop, right? I had to. But I would rather people stop on their own, take a pause, and start to search. Even if you have to take multiple pauses, a pause could be, I'm going to, once a week for 2 hours, I'm just going to take my rest. I'm going to take some rest. That's just rest. It's not sleep, it's rest on my terms, right? And maybe you can increase that later. And at first, all you're going to do is rest. But then, as you get more of those restful moments where it's just about you resting, now you're clearing space, you're clearing some of that mental clutter, and now you can start to think. You can start to ideate. Man, is that what I really want? Am I really happy doing this? Is this something for me or for somebody else? Man, I feel tired in my bones. You know what? I was feeling that pain, but I wasn't doing anything about it. You know what? Let me make sure I call for an appointment instead of ignoring it because I've just been constantly moving. Things of that nature, right? What my hope for you is that you pause, you take a pause, multiple pauses as you need to start to figure out what works best for you as a whole being. Okay. So for me, what does the future hold? I'm not sure, right? I'm looking to help more, do more, expand more, be more, care more, love more, be loved on more. But I'm looking to really expand my business, expand myself on this platform so I can reach more people, more professionals who need to take definitive action to taking care of their whole selves, including managing their energy, managing their stress, right? So that they can reach a higher level of themselves and be able to sustain that. No, just like these quick fix weight losses that may work in a moment, but the moment you stop doing it, it stops working, right? Or sometimes it stops working while you're doing it. I want to be able to help people understand how to take care of their whole selves, to define what that looks like for them on their terms. Okay. I feel another book coming. Don't know what it's going to be about, but I feel another book coming. So I'm looking to do that in the future. I want to continue to inspire other people. And like I said, I want to love more and be loved more. And that's going to entail keeping myself open for all of that. I have a lot of love, by the way, but I don't know, maybe that's greedy of me. Who knows? But if it is, it is. So, as I celebrate this milestone, because it is a milestone, guys, I said I'm a 5-year cancer survivor, and someone corrected me, and so I'm going to say it the way they said it. I am a 5-year cancer thriver. Everything that I've spoken to you about shows how I have thrived from the moment that I received my cancer diagnosis. I have thrived from that moment because it helped me not only grow from that point, it also helped me address stuff that I didn't even really realize was going on with me that was outside of that cancer diagnosis. So I'm a work in progress. And as I celebrate it, I'm filled with gratitude. I know that I'm blessed. And what I want to leave with you is that some of you are facing your own challenges, but I want you to remember, right, that there are lessons even in those challenges, and you need to be open to listen and to feel those lessons so that you too can thrive, because it is possible. Embrace the journey. I know the journey may not even feel good. You want to dig your head in the sand sometimes, right? Don't dig it in too far. Embrace the journey, learn from it, and use those lessons to fuel your fire and fuel your future. So that's all for now, right? I hope that inspired somebody, but I didn't want to let this opportunity go to be just ever so grateful and so thankful that I'm here. And I'm gonna be here. So continue, for those of you that follow me, thank you so much. And please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It's been my pleasure to be here and serve here, because that's what I'm doing with this platform. I'm doing it to serve and anybody that it helps, right? That's a win to me. All right, guys. So be great, be excellent, be balanced, and we'll talk next time. Bye-bye.